Well, welcome to Coffee Break with the Chamber. Good crowd today, especially trying to look for bags under eyes. Everybody seems like they're fairly awake. So good work on that. Today we're going to hear from Carrie Thompson, and she's on here somewhere. She decided to be a dietitian at the age of 11. Consequently, she and I have a lot in common. When I was 11 years old, I decided I would need the services of a dietitian someday. So it worked out nicely that we could do this together, kind of meet in the middle. I'm going to read off her many associations and credentials. She's a registered dietitian and licensed by the state of Texas, board certified specialist in sports dietetics, certified eating disorders registered dietitian, member of the American Dietetic Association, member of National Eating Disorders Association, and a member of SCAN, a dietetic practice group with a role. They look at the role of nutrition when it comes to sports performance, cardiovascular health, wellness and weight management, disordered eating prevention and treatment, and many more things. Carrie, which is pretty cool, was the consulting dietitian for the Spurs from 2009 to 2017. I did a little research for you all, and I kind of pulled up the Spurs record here. And while Carrie was the consulting dietitian, they had a .718 win percentage. Since then, see, she's not doing it anymore, 0.536. So I would just say coincidence? Nah, you decide. I don't know. Nutrition may matter when it comes to basketball. Carrie says her mission is to help people live life to the fullest by teaching them how to eat intuitively, to instill a no-fad diet way of life, and create symmetry between work, exercise, family, and food. She sees clients for a variety of reasons, but specializes in the treatment of eating disorders, sports nutrition, and general wellness. So thinking about today, I can speak for myself that COVID has drastically changed my eating and drinking habits, which I think, affects how we eat, affects how we perform in our positions at work. I can tell when I've eaten, say a whole loaf of bread for lunch, then I will be tired. Things like that actually do matter. So nutrition works that. And then with the holidays coming, I'll just say ay on that. So she's going to give us some advice on how to stay healthy, I think at home, in the workplace, and just generally in life. So I'm going to turn it over to Carrie. Thanks for being here, and you are on.
Awesome. Are you going to make me the host of the meeting so that I can share my screen?
I betcha.
Okay.
Let's get you, we're getting you full screen right now. And making you host.
There we go. Awesome. All right. So we are going to talk today about mindful eating in the holidays. So the term mindful eating is a relatively kind of new concept to the idea of nutrition. It's something that it's been around for a little while, but it's gained some popularity in more recent years. I think that the idea of mindfulness has gained popularity over the last couple years because people have gotten so tired of fad diets and kind of crash diets that they've realized like there's got to be something else out there that's a little bit more sustainable. And so people have moved towards mindful eating. And so I think the idea of mindful eating becomes even more important during the holiday months because it's a time that we're given so many opportunities to eat fun foods and drink with friends and all the wonderful things that come along with the holidays. So how do we prepare for these holidays and these New Year's? And the idea is becoming more mindful. So the idea of mindful eating is just one piece to the puzzle. And I'm going to kind of briefly talk about some of the other things as well today, primarily because I don't think that we can talk about good nutrition and mindful nutrition without talking about some of the other things that come along with it. We have this idea of wellness, general well-being, and nutrition is just one piece to that puzzle. So I'm going to kind of briefly talk about some of the other things as well, and then open it up for questions. So this is a really big slide on mindful eating. So the idea of mindful eating is pretty much encompassed in this one little handout here. So I'm going to kind of go over this and explain to you what it is. So mindful eating is basically how my great grandparents ate, or probably even my grandparents. We could go back even closer. And that is, we stopped what we were doing. They stopped what they were doing. They came in and they sat at a table. They ate with their food on a plate, and they didn't do a whole bunch of other things. So this is not how we eat these days, right? We are driving, probably texting, shoving some food in our mouth at the same time, and going to the next thing. We're eating out of a bucket or barrel or whatever, and then we're taking our children to the next event. But mindful eating is purely focusing on the food itself. So sitting at a table, not standing up at the bar in the kitchen, but actually sitting at a table, putting your fork down in between bites, chewing your food thoroughly, eating your food on a plate, not out of the container that it came in. And that goes for snacks too. So we shouldn't eat chips out of a bag or eat goldfish out of a big sack. But putting those foods into a smaller, more reasonable container. And then the big one, no TV, no computer, and no phone while we eat. Okay. So if we do all these things, what happens? Okay. So what happens is that our brain is capable of comprehending what we're actually doing, and that's eating. So when we do 100 other things, whether it be driving or watching a TV show, those things will take precedence over the eating. And so our brain focuses on making sure we don't kill anyone while we're driving, or it focuses on, making sure, that we're watching what we're watching on TV. We're comprehending the storyline. And so when we remove all those distractions, we're able to acknowledge things like, I'm getting full. This tastes really good. I added too much salt. So all these things about our food that we normally would not really acknowledge if we were focusing on something else. So when we stop and when we focus just on the food, we're able to have these other thoughts and perceptions about our food. We're also able to identify a feeling of fullness, which is something that we're not really able to do when we are focusing on the TV. So all of these things help us identify a feeling of hunger and fullness easily when we slow down and eat more mindfully. Also, the hormones that release from our brain to tell our stomach that we're full happen more readily, and we can sense them better when we pay closer attention to them. So the idea of slowing down and becoming more present inevitably will help us eat less because we have a greater sense of satisfaction and we have a greater sense of fullness faster. Okay. So one of the most helpful things that I talk to clients about when we talk about hunger and fullness is a hunger scale. A hunger scale is something that all of us can use on a regular basis to help us identify whether we should eat or not. So if you say, I am getting pretty hungry, like I need to eat soon, you might identify that you are like a 3 on the hunger scale, or maybe a 4. And then when you begin to feel comfortably full, you might say that you're a 6. So a hunger scale is a very important tool to use, because I think we live in a culture where we like to identify a number as part of a feeling. So this can help us. Other things that it can be helpful for is if we're not hungry at all, but we think something looks good, we can say, I'm not really hungry, but I love donuts from Naeglin's. So we'll say, I'm not very hungry, so that means I should only have a small amount because I'm already right here in that green area on the hunger scale. So identifying a feeling of hunger and fullness is a key component to becoming more mindful. Also, oftentimes people will share with me that they don't feel full until they are maybe an 8 or a 9. That feeling of fullness should be a very gradual build-up feeling. And if we're eating slow enough, it should kind of creep up on us. When we eat too quickly is when fullness feels more like that, like, oh, uncomfortable, kind of, I'm gonna pop kind of feeling. So the slower you eat, the more gradual that feeling of fullness creeps up on you, opposed to making you feel like you're gonna pop. So this is a great thing to use, I think, especially as the holidays approach, is just identifying, I need to eat when I feel slightly hungry, and I need to stop when I feel slightly full. A couple years ago, a celebrity came out that had lost quite a bit of weight. And I think everyone pays attention, when celebrities have significant weight loss. And the coolest thing is that she actually lost weight through mindful eating. So it was kind of like the first time ever a celebrity had been successful or had talked about mindful eating. It tends to always be some kind of fad diet, don't eat this, buy this kind of thing. And it was great because she said, I have so much food available to me, so much wonderful, yummy food. But what I realized is that, most of the time I'm not hungry. And so having just a small bite of it or a small little nibble of it is all I should have, because I'm actually not hungry. And I'm just eating it because it's there. And that was Kathy Bates. Everyone probably knows who that is, but it was a very long story on her success with mindful eating. So let's go on to the next one. So the next thing that tends to be really helpful at helping people be mindful eaters is to write down what they're eating. So people tend to be more successful at becoming more mindful about their food choices when they write it down, even if they don't show it to anyone. So even if they don't work with a dietitian, or they don't, have a personal trainer or health coach or someone that they share the information with, but they actually just write it down to become more mindful, it's supposed to be helpful. So there is a bazillion different types of food journals out there. This one that I picked actually helps you identify your hunger and fullness before and after you eat. So I liked this one. But again, just a helpful tool. There's also a significant amount of apps out there, hundreds of them, that can help you write down your food. Some as specific as like the MyFitnessPal that does the calorie tracking, and then others that monitor other things like how much sleep you got, how much water you drink, that type of thing. So regardless of whether you want to do pen and paper or app-based journal, this is a really helpful way to just be more conscious of what you're doing. So if we were to look at mindfulness in regards to what it should look like nutritionally, we want it to be balanced, and we want to make sure we're incorporating a variety of foods. So this is what, when clients come to meet with me for the first time, this is typically the template that I will send them home with. So not too challenging. I tend to think that we overcomplicate nutrition by saying, you know, make sure and cut this out, and make sure and cut that out, or only have one of these, or only have one of this. But it's actually not that difficult. We need to try to have half of our plate being the veggies, and then throw some fruit in there possibly, and then add some form of fat. So fat, of course, makes us want to eat our food. So adding a salad dressing to a salad makes it a heck of a lot more tastier. So this, in a nutshell, is what our plate should look like. I mean, ultimately, we want that fourth of the plate of grains to be whole grains. We want the protein to be a lean protein, not fried. And then half a plate of veggies. We want those to be a variety of vegetables. So this is really the template that we should attempt to follow on a regular basis for the most part for our lunch and dinner meals. So besides mindful nutrition, I think the other key components to becoming more mindful are a couple things, and I'm going to kind of briefly talk through those. And I just encourage y'all to kind of think about where you stand with these other elements of wellness as we go through them. So the first one is water. So I did not include a slide on here about all the benefits of water, because I think the majority of us know it's really, really good for us. It helps our brains think clearly. It helps our skin be nice, and all of our organs and bones and tissues need it to function properly. So it's an important thing. And this is a super easy kind of what I call rule of thumb way to estimate how much water you need. And basically, if you look at this, it's about half of your body weight in ounces. And so that's a rough estimate of how much water each of us need each day. If you work outside or you exercise pretty heavily, your water needs will be greater than this. But this is just a rough estimate of something else to take into consideration. Okay, so the next thing don't forget about is sleep. So skimping, there's some really fun research on this. One of the other things that's it's actually not included in my bio, but I teach classes regularly at an alcohol and addiction treatment center in San Antonio. And so I'm always very curious about how food and addiction work together. And sleep is actually an important component to that, because it makes our brain, and it makes a lot of sense too. It just makes our brain more tired and we don't make as good of decisions. And we have probably all witnessed this at some point in our life. When we feel tired, one of our first thoughts is like, oh, I just need to maybe eat some cake, or, I need to eat something that's going to give me some energy. So when our brain is tired, our ambition and our willpower, our ability to have really good thinking skills is decreased as well. So good, restful sleep is a huge component to making those healthy choices. Years ago, I went to a conference that spoke about a binge eating disorder and sleep. It was an entire conference just about the role that sleep plays in our ability to control urges to want to overeat and binge eat. So it was really extensive, the information that was taught at that. And from that point on, I really tried to make it a point to incorporate into my practice, encouraging people to get good, restful sleep in order for that kind of piece to the puzzle, to make sure that we're addressing that. Okay, then the last component to that, the last component to our whole wellness package is exercise. So, I looked at these lists that, 100 reasons to exercise. And again, I think most of us know these, prevents heart disease and diabetes and all of these other things. But some of the other things that I think are so important is this improved functional mobility. So basically it keeps us moving and keeps us limber the older we get. It helps us with energy, huge component to like decreasing stress and anxiety. So exercise is a huge, big component to our wellness puzzle. But it does seem to be a component that a lot of people struggle to get. My hunch on that is that I think oftentimes people are encouraged to do exercise that they feel is unachievable. So for example, if someone comes to my office and they are not exercising at all, and they might say like, I haven't exercised regularly in many, many years. I am not going to say to them, okay, I think this week you need to get yourself a membership to the best CrossFit gym in town, and you need to start doing that for an hour every day. Oftentimes I feel like that's where people get stuck. They go, well, that's just too much, so I'm going to choose to do nothing at all. So I feel like exercise is definitely one of those things that we need to ask our own self what is realistic for us to do. What do I see myself doing? Because I think that's also important too. If we love to do something, but our availability to that thing is poor, our likelihood to do it is not very well. I had a client once that loved some form of martial arts. I don't remember what it was, but the nearest studio where they could do it was like an hour and a half away. And I said, I don't feel like this is a very realistic form of exercise for you to do. So whatever the exercise that we choose to do needs to be something that we can access pretty readily. And then I think as far as the time that we set on it, we have to be realistic about our schedule as well. The vast majority of studies that are done on exercise and its effect on our cardiovascular health and well-being are actually based on 30 minutes a day of walking. So we're not talking about, hours and hours of intense triathlon training, but 30 minutes a day of walking. And when I tell people that tends to be very motivating to them. Like, well, I can do that. And I think that's because we all look at 30 minutes a day as a pretty achievable amount of time. If any of you are interested, I really love a YouTube video by a doctor that does these cool little Google sketch things. They're fun to follow. It's called 23 and a half hours. And he talks about how 30 minutes a day of exercise can really cause such dramatic changes. And he quotes some really neat research studies as well in that 23 and a half hour video. It's only 5 minutes too. So very motivating. So basically what we're looking at to kind of make it through these holidays and into the new year is to become more mindful of our food, our food choices, the portions that we choose, to really slow down, ask ourselves, do I want this food, or am I simply eating it because it's here? Do I enjoy the taste of this, or am I simply eating it because it's here? So slowing down, letting our bodies begin to identify that feeling of hunger and fullness, and really working to put away those electronics so that we can focus on this. I think this is such a key thing. I didn't say this earlier, but I can't do this talk without saying this. The research has shown that this is a huge area of concern as well for our children. So for those of you who have small children, I know that it can be very difficult with soccer and baseball and whatever else to get them to sit and have a family meal. But I really encourage you to try to make that happen at least a couple times a week. And this is shown to be such a positive thing for our children, not only to share in those conversations that happen around mealtime, but also to teach them at a young age to become mindful and slow down their eating. Also, we talked about the importance of sleep, water, and of course, exercise. So all of these things together will create a balance throughout the holiday season, and just help us become more mindful. I hope that this was helpful today. And I think we have a couple minutes if anyone has any questions.
Kira Frederick sent one on the chat box. It says, do you have recommendations for getting children to try new, healthier foods?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, so one of the things that I encourage parents to do when you have a new food is to first start off with a very small portion. So we're not going to put a massive portion on the plate, but we're gonna call what we call a 3-bite courtesy. And so we're gonna put a very small, 3-bite equivalents onto the plate. And then some of the things that you might say, something like, tonight we're going to try something new, and you're going to try it, and then you're going to tell me what you think about it. Okay. So it's almost like a science experiment. You get to try it, and then we talk about it. And one of the things that I think is important when trying to get kids to try new things is to prepare them. So you could say something like, every Wednesday we're going to try a new vegetable. So get ready, we're going to do this. So I think preparing children for it. Another neat thing would be to even have them involved in it. So if the idea is to try new vegetables, maybe to look in a book or to look on the computer and let them try a new one. And then you can even go as far as to get these. And again, there's a bazillion templates on the internet for these. You can get these fruit and vegetable reward charts. So, if little Billy, tries his 3 bites of his new vegetables, he gets a check. And then again, as parents, you can decide, you know, we're going to get 10 checks. And after 10 checks, you get to, you know, pick the movie we're going to watch on Friday night, or you get to pick a little treat out of the trinket box or whatever. So there's a lot of different ways that we can go about this, whether it be bribing them with some kind of trinket or toy, or just encouraging them to be part of the choosing process. But either way, I think the best way is to start off with just a small portion, and not like, you're going to eat the same amount as the rest of us, but offering those small bites to start with. Mm-hmm. Are there any other questions?
Yes, Sandy Payson has one. Would you be willing to share your mindful eating journal sheet?
Oh, though I can actually just send you this whole the whole presentation. Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We'll skip the next question. Hey, I did notice on your plate where you had the sections divided out, there was no Sour Patch Kids section on there. And so I wondered if that was neglected to be added.
So that would be like a mindful treat or candy, and that's perfectly okay as long as it's done in moderation and done mindfully.
That's my reward for eating my 3 bites of vegetables. Any other questions from the group? If not, I have one more. Is what's the one thing those of us who are watching could do, start today or stop today, that would make the biggest difference?
I think it's to stop using technology while you eat. Most definitely. Yeah. Remember, our brains do not have the ability to watch TV, to drive, to focus on those emails, and to have the ability to make that brain-body connection with hunger and fullness. So while doing work or driving or doing something else while we eat is the biggest barrier to us identifying a normal sense of hunger. And therefore, I think our desire to want to multitask is one of the biggest reasons why we as Americans tend to be overweight.
Got it.
Yeah.
Rita, you have a question.
Yes. When my grandkids were small, we raised our 2 of our grandkids. We would watch, and they were very popular then. I think you can still get them now, but we would watch the Land Before Time series with the different dinosaurs. Uh-huh. And then we would take them to the Chinese restaurant, and we would say Littlefoot, which is the brontosaurus, eats the broccoli, which is little trees. And Triceratops, which is Sarah, eats the snow peas. And we would pick them out, and they would ask which one eats this. The panda eats the bamboo shoots, and so eats the water chestnuts. And they would relate that to the Land Before Time. And I wondered, because that's how I got my kids to eat vegetables, my grandkids. Mm-hmm. And that wasn't available back when the kids were small. And I wondered if that was something that you would recommend. By watching that, then they related it to an animal, and they looked forward to having vegetables, you know, that reminded them of the various characters in Land Before Time.
Well, I think anything that you know, helps children relate to, you know, where their food comes from or how it's grown, where it's produced is a very powerful tool. That's why I recommended, you know, letting them choose it. So even having that, you know, piece of educational time where you say, hey, you know, corn is grown here in Texas, or, you know, let's choose a different crop and this is where it's grown, and this is how it's grown. If we went to schools today and asked children, you know, how are potatoes grown? Where do chicken nuggets come from? I imagine the vast majority of y'all would be alarmed that children have very little understanding and knowledge of where their food comes from. And I think it does have an impact on their ability to want to eat it. You know, I really work a lot with my own children that they understand, you know, where fruits and vegetables come from and why they're important to eat them. I spoke last year before COVID to my son's kindergarten class and did a simple exercise with little felt fruits and vegetables. And I gave each child a felt fruit and vegetable. And then I asked them to put him, you know, every kid got to come up and put it on a chart, whether it was a fruit or a vegetable. And the vast majority of the children did not know what some of them were, and also if they counted as a fruit or a vegetable. So I think anything that helps our children understand where their food comes from and the importance of it to their body, I think has a huge impact on their desire to want it and try it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. You guys see on the screen, it's her website. I think your email address, is it on there? It's covered by a chat box here. Yep. But I'm said you said you're happy to answer questions, and we'll share out your deck. And yeah, we'll share that with everyone as well. Thank you for doing this, Carrie.
Yeah, definitely.
It's been really helpful. I think I've broken all the rules, so I was going to offer myself as a case study if you ever need to do one on how to make the transformation. Thank you for doing this. Thank you all for being here. Happy day to you. And let's all remember to be kind to each other, regardless of the results today or the rest of this week. Have a great day.